I didn't see it. I have to see it. I have to get it.
Hey guys, welcome back everybody. Once again, it's March Madness. This is Marc Lawrence, and I'm all set to go against the spread with our cast of experts on our exclusive NCAA tournament basketball show today. And with that, I want to welcome in our cast of experts, the legend himself from Las Vegas, Jim Feist. Jim, I know it's probably getting pretty jammed in Vegas this time of the year for the NCAA tournament.
It gets really busy, especially today. The flights coming in here now are just jammed. This is actually bigger time in Vegas than it is for the Super Bowl and the NFL playoffs. This is huge.
A good friend of mine who helps me write our newsletter, helped me write our March Madness tournament guide, went to Vegas yesterday. He left at 6 a.m. or was supposed to leave at 6 a.m. He didn't leave until 7 p.m. at night. And I don't even know if he's there.
Oh, my
Is
God.
this from Florida?
Yes.
With the weather and the TSA shutting down and all that.
Exactly right.
I know people on the East Coast that can't get a flight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad I have no travel plans beyond Pahrump.
Well, do you have any travel plans, Andy, to go to a sports book and watch any of these games, or are you going to be camped out on your couch at home?
Probably a little bit of both over the course of the 4 days.
Well,
By the way, I've already lost a bet. I made a bet with myself that Greg was going to have as one of the screens thing for March Madness, a picture of Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future wearing a sort of a bracket T-shirt with the hair all going up.
You should have put it in Greg's ear, Andy. You should have put it in his ear. You might have seen it, Greg DePalma, are you all set NCAA tournament? You getting ready to rock and roll?
Yes, third show in 3 days. And so we're ready. Tomorrow we'll wake up and
by the way, the show with you with Jim and Matt yesterday was outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
Really
Thanks,
was.
Andy.
Yeah, Matt wrote back. He said Greg, you and I, he said, you two guys are the best to work with.
Cool.
That's pretty good.
And he works with a lot of people.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mark, I'm sure you know Matt very well.
I know him real well. Yes. I like the guy real well. He's a writer by trade and got into the gambling portion part of it and has worked his way into the position where he's at now. Terrific writer, terrific penman, and really, really knowledgeable. I like his view on sports. It's nothing radical. He takes a real conservative approach, a real logical approach, and I like to listen to what he has to say.
Wait a minute, logical approach, isn't that Andy Iskoe?
Yeah, that probably would have been a good. Oh, you did have Andy Iskoe with Matt Humans. How about that?
Yeah. Well, I actually wanted the website Logical Approach way back when, and this is we're talking in the 90s. It was already taken, so I had to go with the Logical Approach. And as it turns out, I like it because if I put a little O after the THE, it's Theological Approach, which means we're really praying for results.
Or is it close to theology?
Yeah. Now you went to Penn, Andy. Do they have a chance?
I'd like to see a proposition if they will have the lead at any point in their opening game against Illinois. The no is probably minus 220.
You can read between the lines on that there, Jim.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, actually, I mean, if you look at Penn, they do have some good things that go. They happen to be one of the best three-point field goal shooting teams in the country. And we saw that the other day as the Yale coach really blew it without calling without fouling at the end of the game. Yeah, without fouling.
Give it to the hottest, and just allow the hottest guy on the court to dribble up and spot the three. Yeah.
Anytime you break a record,
that's what you're supposed to do.
Anytime you break a record that stood for 20 years, by the way, he broke the record set by Carmelo Anthony for the player in a conference championship final with 40 points and at least 10 rebounds.
Yeah.
Who did that?
What's that guy
TJ Power.
Shoot. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he was wasn't he a 5-star? Wasn't he?
And he was a
5-star recruit.
He went to Duke. He transferred to Virginia, and now he transferred to Penn. And he said he's coming back next year.
And
those are the nice stories.
I think Alan Boston went to Penn as well.
I believe he did. I think he's at least a few years, maybe more, younger than I am. So our paths never would have crossed.
I think he's about 68.
Oh, that's only about 3 years then.
Okay.
He may have been running the freshman parlay cards when I was a senior.
You had a little competition going back then, even, huh? Hey guys, let's set this card up, this big weekend, the opening weekend of the NCAA basketball tournament, with just a little bit of a look back at what we were talking about at the onset, getting ready for this tournament here. And we had discussed a little bit in detail about which of the teams that were on the bubble, how close these teams were in the bubble. And I'm going to do a quick little capsule review, if I may. We had talked about the last 4 teams that were facing byes. They were NC State, Central Florida, Santa Clara, and Missouri. And it turns out NC State played in the first 4 games. The other teams all made the big dance, which was probably fairly accurate, I would say. The same thing for the last 4 teams in. Those teams were SMU, check, Texas, check, VCU, check, New Mexico, out. First 4 teams out, all 4 of them, not a one received a bid. That was Cincinnati, San Diego State, Auburn, and Indiana. The next 4 out obviously did not receive a bid either. California, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Seton Hall. Anything surprised you as far as which teams make this tournament, Greg, and those that didn't? Did anybody get left out that should be here, or is anybody an imposter that's in here right now?
Well, the only one that we talked about the other day is the team that plays tonight, and that's SMU.
I was thinking the other one. Go ahead, Greg.
And that's because of the reason given by the chairman why SMU made it, which is just typical for a chairman to make himself sound real foolish on one of these shows, whether it's football or basketball, when he said that, well, SMU's getting so-and-so back, BJ Edwards. And so since he's coming back, that played a big role in our decision to let SMU play in the tournament, which is just, it's so unfair for a variety of reasons.
I think it's preposterous, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so, look, this does not mean, and we talk about this all the time, and we'll talk about more, of course, now with football, with 12 teams, same thing, and a lot more with basketball. We can complain and we could say this team doesn't deserve to be in or that team, but once that conversation's over, everything else is off the table, and it doesn't mean SMU can't win games. It just means they didn't deserve to be there. So, and even more so this year because of how weak these seeded teams are, that a team like SMU can still go on a little bit of a roll, like maybe one of these first 4 teams that can win a couple of games. It would not be a surprise. They have 5 double-digit scorers, and they have a coach who's been proven in tournament time. And we saw one of those coaches last night get a win in Miller. You know, how often do we talk about how coaching is so important in college basketball and the belief that these teams can make a run? And on the flip side, I know they were never going to make it, but I still had hope that the committee would be logical and go with the team that was playing as good as any bubble team, or not better than any bubble team in the last few weeks of the season, and that was Florida State. And so I was pretty bummed that they didn't get in just because the guy missed whatever it was, a 12-foot shot at the buzzer. If it goes in, maybe they get in. Maybe they win another game and they're in the. But he missed it, and that was against the number 1 seeded team in the entire country, Duke. But other than that, I don't think there was much to argue about because, again, most of those bubble teams weren't very good anyway.
Well, of the 5 teams, guys, that I mentioned that didn't make it, any one of the 5 you can make a case for: Cincinnati, Auburn, San Diego State, Indiana, or New Mexico, Andy, that should be here that aren't.
I could probably make a case for Auburn playing in the conference that they played in and as tough as they were. I was surprised that the committee basically said VCU was the last of the ones that made it in, meaning that they had to win that conference game to advance. I thought that VCU, if St. Louis was in already, which is what it means, that they were not in any danger. I thought VCU and St. Louis were clearly the 2 best teams in that conference, and there wasn't much to separate them, although I do believe that St. Louis beat VCU a couple of times. But other than that, I was surprised about that decision. I guess the other one that surprised me as much as any of them was that Miami was also a team that apparently was in and in position to to make the tournament, even if they are in the Final Four, because I believe that we were talking about it last week when they lost to UMass. Well, I think we did our show before we did the UMass loss at the beginning of the MAC tournament, but I would have thought that that might have clearly jeopardized them, but apparently they were not amongst the last 4 in. You would think that the last 4 in would be the teams that play in that play-in game with the 11 seeds, but apparently that's not the case, and so apparently Miami was already in before they had to go to the last 4.
I think when they talk about those teams being the first 4 in, or the last 4 in, I think for all intents and purposes, they're probably talking about what we would call major conference type teams, or Division I teams, not the mid majors that no one knows what conference they reside in. I think that's sort of the box that they have to check to be one of those teams. I don't think, like, for instance, Wagner was ever considered to be one of these teams. It would instead be these teams we're talking about that come from either major or mid-major conferences.
In that case, what I'm glad then is that if the last 4 in, I would still think those are at-large teams. That the at-large teams should perhaps the 4 last at-large teams should be the ones that play in the play-in game. In other words, not the 11 seeds, but maybe the 12 seeds.
Jim, any thoughts you have about, was there anybody you were surprised that did not get in, or somebody that maybe had, as far as seeding is concerned, maybe a little bit too high or a little bit too soft of a seeding? Any first thoughts you had when you saw the pairings?
Yeah, SMU should not be there. It's a joke. That's ridiculous what the chairman said, and one of the reasons they did. I thought maybe San Diego State should be there. Give them a shot. You get down to this level of basketball is not anywhere near competitive enough to get to the Final 8, Final 4, win the championship. That's the problem we're going to have with the NIL and the portal. And because the quality athlete is rising to the top. I mean, you got teams with 22 million, 25 million in there to pay players, and another team might have 800,000. So I mean, you're not going to get the quality. I think that some of the seeding, a lot of the seeding is kind of set up in a way to hurt the middle teams. And I don't know if that's intentional, but it seems to work out that way. I mean, there's teams that probably should have a little bit better seeding so they don't have to run into teams that they're seeded too well, so they have to run into better teams early. And that screws it up, because now you get rid of them right away. And I don't like that either. But I think SMU should not be there. Several of the teams you mentioned look better than them, but I would probably pick San Diego State.
So then when
I will add one thing, Mark, and that is when I ran my numbers on Missouri, I'm surprised that they're in the tournament. When I compare them to the other 67 teams, they show up very, very low overall. When I take a look at my raw, I use 15 different categories that I look at, and I weight some of them more than others, but I run 2 sets, the raw numbers and the adjusted numbers. And in both cases, Missouri ranks below a lot of the teams, even on a comparable level as far as some of the lower tier teams and some of the other major conferences.
I'm sure a lot of that, Andy, had to do with the neighborhood in which they live, the Southeast Conference.
Yeah.
That's they're going to get long drawn attention. And, that's what I think eventually favored them to make it into this basketball tournament here.
I might have taken Auburn over Missouri, maybe even in Oklahoma.
Yeah, Missouri beat Vandy in Florida, and that's going to be the reason. And again, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong.
Yeah.
But the problem is again, we talked about this too, is that a lot of these other bubble teams that don't get the opportunity to play in these conferences, it's not their fault. So I'm sorry, but you're not going to convince me that if you took one of those other bubble teams, put them in the same conference with the same schedule, that they couldn't also have a couple of big wins along the way. You're not going to talk me out of that. I just think it's when you have 2 big wins out of 10, and whatever the quad number would have been, who knows? Maybe they're 2-7 or 2-9 in quad wins. I can see a lot of these other bubble teams that didn't get in doing the same thing.
Well, you guys are spot on from this standpoint that we do every year in our March Madness guide. We break the teams down on how they perform this season. against other tournament teams. And it's interesting to see how they perform both straight up and against the spread. We're talking about Missouri, who is 5-8 outright against other tournament teams. And we talked earlier about SMU, who is 3-8. Those are the two poorest. Well, A&M is 3-9. I guess maybe that's even poorer. Villanova 2-6. But I think that's, if they use that calculus, you're putting it on how do they perform against other tournament teams. I want to know that before I'm making a wager. And then more specifically, what did they do against the spread in those games against those teams? And
also, by the way, keep in mind, you've got a lot of these teams in the field that are included in that 3-8 mark, for example, that are not major power teams. There's these teams that these other teams will play in November and December that make the field because they won their minor conference tournaments. That's included in those 3-8 marks.
No question about it. Exactly. Yeah. So,
Mark, a year ago, when we run into these problems every year, when these teams have these like 2-7 records against quality teams, how do they do when they get in the tournament? How have they done?
Well, what I know is this, Jim, and I used to agonize over this. I would get too deep into the selection Sunday and start tossing pillows and what are you doing and how they get there, yada, 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 and all those things. But the bottom line to the whole thing is, after I chilled out and calmed down, is all the teams we're talking about, should they be here or not, they don't have a slightest chance to cut down the nets in this tournament. If they are here, they're going to be here short-lived, maybe 1 or 2 games. So how much of a factor are they going to be inside this tournament? That's the question.
Yeah, and you couldn't have said that a few years ago. It was more important to get in because there were teams that could make runs to the Final Four because there was a reason. Like you could get like a Jim Boeheim coach Syracuse team. And because of the way that they played a defensive style that not many other teams did, and they had a great coach, and maybe they happened to have a senior-laden team that year, and they just got hot with the right bracket and so forth. So that would happen every year. That's not the case anymore. None of these teams that are barely getting in are making any sort of run, except maybe if they're lucky getting to the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
that's why I think we should have the NCAA should cut back to maybe 44 teams or 34 teams. And let the NIT pick up these guys because that tournament would be absolutely awesome for the middle majors or the lower teams.
Right.
It's a great tournament. They all potentially could win. And up at the NCAA with the 32 teams or even 40, they could all possibly win. I'd like to see where there's a possibility for everybody to win, but now the way it's set up, you can't possibly win.
Well, there's a lot of concerns, I think, guys, clouds hovering over these teams in these tournaments here. And I've got 4 of my laid out here I want to ask you guys about. Number one, Arizona is the number 1 overall clear front runner in this tournament. With their injury.
Wasn't it Duke, the number 1 overall seed?
Was it Duke or Arizona?
I thought it was Duke, Arizona, Michigan, Florida. Because Duke would play Florida in the Final Four.
All right, let me rephrase that then. Duke, number 1. Michigan in the top 4. Is there a cause for concern for the injuries that these 2 basketball teams are incurring right now going into the tournament, Duke and Michigan?
Well, Toppin's out in Arizona. I mean, he's a great player.
Well, the Duke injury is the biggest one just based on the fact that get their players back. They're supposed to get their players back, but we don't know when they may get them back. And they don't have a very, they're a talented team, no question. We know that. They're not a one-man team, even though Cameron Boozer is a great player. But the fact is that this team only has, I believe, 5 or 6 players that average over 8 points a game, something like that. So they have like 6 guys who are, most of their scoring options. You take 2 guys out of that rotation, that's significant. And I think
doesn't Michigan also have, their backup point guard?
Well, Kason, he was their backup point guard. And will they miss him? Sure. But he's their backup point guard. So I'm not going to sit there if Michigan loses a game in the tournament and go, they lost because their backup point guard wasn't in. Teams have injuries all the time. Yeah. But when you take 2 guys out that are really significant parts of your team that are like starters, that's a lot different. So I would think that's the biggest news. And the second biggest news is Gonzaga and whether they get Braden Huff back. And I don't know whether or not Mark Few made any statements in the last 24 hours, but that is the difference between Gonzaga being a Final Four team and potentially losing in the second round.
What's the impact of Alabama losing their second leading scorer? And it's not because of an injury.
And that should be huge. Yeah.
So that dope, you mean, Andy? The dope?
Yeah. Yeah, the dope with the dope issue.
Yes, right.
Yeah. I wonder how his teammates reacted to that. I don't know.
Well, they're
Today,
not
these
happy.
kids, you know, in the old days, they would have kicked his ass, but I don't know about today.
So, guys, given the fact that Duke, Michigan, Gonzaga do have some injuries of concerns, would you say that then paves the way for Arizona to be the clear front runner in this tournament as we speak?
Well, they don't have Toppin either.
No, that's Toppin's Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with Arizona is, and this is the reason why I haven't really bought in that they're going to, that they're not one of my favorites to go in. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just not one of my favorites, is because they have 8-man rotation basically, and 4 guys are true freshmen. And that is a lot to place on a team in a program that hasn't been to the Final Four in a while. It's not like they had this great history in the last 3 or 4 years of being in the Sweet 16 and the Final Four. They made a nice run last year, and that was basically their best run in years. So there's a lot to ask. And also, even though the kid made a nice, game winner the other night against Iowa State, they really don't have – they have like 4 or 5 really good players that all average around 10, 12, 13 points a game. They don't have like, that's the guy. That's the go-to guy. They got Cameron Boozer. I can name a few other star players. They don't have that guy. So that concerns me a little bit.
Well, that's probably part of the makeup of their team. I'm sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, by the way, at the Westgate last night, Duke, Arizona, and Michigan were the 3 tri-favorites at 7-2 plus 350.
Well, if you were at the racetrack, that's what they would be, Andy. Tri-favorites, right?
A lot of people say Florida's the best team, but they don't have the shortest odds.
No, they don't. And, I think there's a couple of reasons or concerns there, Jim, for that reason. I could be wrong, correct me, but it's awfully difficult to repeat 2 years in a row in an NCAA tournament. They are not a good 3-point shooting team at all. Exactly. In fact, of the 68 teams in this tournament, they are the worst 3-point shooting team Florida is.
By the way, another thing about Florida, see, I not only look at my numbers for this year, but I compare them to last year. Last year, Florida was one of the elite teams, probably top 4 or 5 overall. I think they were one of the number 1 seeds. This year, their numbers are way down. Now, part of it is what you mentioned, Mark, the difficulty that they have with the 3-pointers as far as their percentage. So if I were going to make a wager on the first number 1 seed to be eliminated, I would go with Florida.
I was watching a show and listening to a coach, and he was saying, what's the number 1 pedigree that a team brings to the tournament that could help carry this team all the way through the tournament? And his answer was clear and simple. It was 3-point shooting. If you find teams that can nail threes, you're going to advance in this tournament. You want to move on your bracket, find good 3-point shooting teams. So immediately after I hear that, what do? I tune in to the Southeast Conference Championship game with Arkansas and Vanderbilt. And what did I watch? An avalanche of 3-point shooters from Arkansas that carry them right into this tournament here. So I think it's critical. You have to look and make sure that whoever you're going to be carrying, wanting to move forward, at least from a bracket standpoint, they have the ability to lay and make some threes.
Yeah, and Arkansas also has one of those guys I just talked about that I don't think Arizona has. I mean, Burries is their best freshman. He averages close to 16 a game, and he's a really good player, but he's a freshman. And he's a good one, but I don't think he's in my mind, he's not nearly on the level of Acuff. And Acuff is one of the top young basketball players out there that can take over any game in any situation, which is what makes them very dangerous, along with, a proven championship coach in Calipari. And another thing that I remember about Arizona is that 5 of their top 9 in the rotation, I think, are from overseas. So you've got guys from Australia and Senegal and so forth. And I don't know. I mean, I know we've had this influx of these international players, but I don't know if that's ever really worked when you rely on a lot of them to win a championship.
Hasn't that been the case for Gonzaga many of the years?
Yeah, even in Gonzaga, St. Mary's, they've done a great job bringing over those types of players, but they've never won a championship.
You're right.
And so, yeah, I mean, are they, the old adage on those types of players, are they tough enough? Do they have that type of game? Are they, to match up with American ball players, who have the same talent?
It used to be that they were fundamentally sound, but not physical enough to play 40 minutes against elite quality.
Yeah, but today the athletes are evolving. They're getting better and better and more athletic. And I think that picture's changing.
Plus the international players are as at high a level as they've ever been.
Yes, they are. You're exactly right. Watching the
Compared
draft,
to the Americans,
you need a translator when they announce the players' names to pronounce them properly.
Look at the players in the NBA. How many of them can't even pronounce their names?
Exactly right. Exactly. You need a
look at Wemby. Wasn't Wemby the number one draft choice?
Yeah, he's from France. And how about Luka?
Head and Shoulders the number one draft.
So Luka's a pretty good player from Europe.
Yeah.
He's going to go down as one of the best NBA players. And I think, obviously his height and his athletic ability is going to have a lot to do with that. But, it's San Antonio, and that's why they're clearly in the picture in the Western Conference. They're going to end up being a 1 or 2 seed over there.
I think it may have been, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but Dirk Nowitzki might have been really the first really outstanding Hall of Fame quality foreign player.
From Germany?
Yeah. He played all those years with Dallas.
The first one, yeah. First one. Yeah.
Okay, guys, another concern here. Keep the ball moving here. My question to you guys is, will there be a mid-major that will make it to the Sweet 16 after failing to do last year for the first time since 2019? Every year since 2019, there had been a mid-major in the Sweet 16. It did not happen last year. Jim, do you think there's any mid-majors that are worth talking about or have the ability to make it to the Sweet 16?
I think there's several of them that have a potential. One is South Florida. Another would be St. Mary's. And another one would be
St. Mary's. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a nice basketball team. Go ahead.
Yeah,
unfortunately, they would have to get by Houston in what
that's what I'm saying.
What might be a 63-60 game.
Yeah, well, Houston has a problem the only problem that they have, and it's been this way for years, they have an offensive problem that disappears. Yeah. But I'd say that you have potential with St. Mary's, South Florida, VCU could potentially win 2 games.
I have another one that's even a longer shot, and that won last year, and that's McNeese. I mean, they are a very, very solid team, and they great with the turnover prevention. I think if they upset Vanderbilt, which I think is possible, and I have them in my final bracket, I think they beat the winner of the Nebraska Troy game. And by the way, if Troy happens to upset Nebraska, that might very well set up a matchup between 2 double-digit seeds to make the Sweet 16.
I think it's not the same coach for McNeese that was there last year.
No.
But the program, they had a good taste of what they did getting into the tournament last basketball season, winning that first round game. And I think they could make some noise. I think they could be one of those teams. Greg, who do you see as a mid-major that could possibly be tipping it off in the Sweet 16?
Well, besides the teams that they've already mentioned, the other one would be Utah State. I think Utah State, Arizona matchup, that could be dangerous for Arizona because Utah State, a little bit more, they got the type of experience that you need. They've got an excellent coach who's been there for 2 years and has won a load of games. And they've had a really good team this year. So that could be the one surprise. I know they have to go up against the 1 seed. But hey, I even look at, speaking of 1 seeds, I mean, and I know they're not a mid-major, but I'd have the same reaction with Duke and TCU if they played. I think that would be a dangerous game for Duke, knowing TCU has won some big games this year. But for mid-majors, the ones you didn't mention, Utah State sticks out.
Another concern, guys, here is Nebraska had a great basketball season this year. Really, really good season. And the question is, can they win their first ever NCAA tournament? They're 0 for 8, looking to try and snap that streak this year. Can they win a basketball game in this first round, Andy, Nebraska?
Well, you know, did you want Jim or myself?
No, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, okay. This is kind of like Miami of Ohio looking to go unbeaten into the NCAA tournament. They've had all the pressure all season, especially late in the season, to complete it. Well, Nebraska has a similar type of pressure on them because they know this is their best chance ever, or certainly in the last 30 years, to get that first elusive NCAA championship win. Meanwhile, they're going up against a Troy team that had some experience last year, and they've had a solid program for a number of years since moving. Well, they've been Division I basketball for a long time. They moved up to football a decade or so ago. I think they ultimately get it, but I would not be surprised if it's a tough game and that, Troy's one of the teams I've already played, plus the points.
Well, I think Troy loses this game, but I think the spread is way too expensive.
Exactly.
I maybe 8 might have been the right number. I just think it's too expensive.
Yeah, if you look at it, like you guys said, the fact is that there's a lot of pressure on top of being a heavy favorite. So now they're a heavy favorite trying to do something that the program's never done before, and everybody now is looking at you to be like, well, okay, well, just get this done. This you should win this game. And that is a lot of pressure on a Troy team that is returning to their second straight champion NCAA tournament after winning last year in the Sun Belt. And they have 6 of their 8 players returning from last year's team. So there's a little bit of chemistry there. They beat Matt Yeomans, who was with us on the Jim Feist show yesterday, reminded us about early in the season, they played back-to-back triple overtime games against San Diego State and USC, beat
both
San
on the
Diego
road.
State, on the road, and then lost at USC, and then
by a point, by the way,
to USC.
Yes,
and then in a bracket buster matchup, which I'm just so disappointed that college basketball's got away from bracket buster Saturday. But there were about 6 or 7 games several weeks ago that they were seeing, like the Michigan Duke game. You were seeing teams from other conferences play each other. Troy played Akron, and Akron was a 2-point favorite at Troy, and Troy beat Akron. And Akron's another one of those mid-major teams that maybe we didn't mention that seemed to be pretty hot. People think they can win a couple games.
By the way, Nebraska, keep in mind, what were they, like 20-0 at one point, or 20-0? Yes. A lot of that great record came as a result of beating everybody in pre-conference play in November and December, and they really haven't been as effective lately as they were back then. So they got that gaudy record, but they got it in a way that is not well balanced as compared to a lot of teams who are like I'm trying to think of like a Gonzaga who.
That's a real good point, Andy. Now they're going to be playing teams of their same ilk right now instead of the layups per se.
You know the amazing thing about Gonzaga, their average margin games, wins and losses, 19.1 points per game. Factored into that 19.1 is that 40-point loss to Michigan.
Yeah, wow, that's revealing.
Yeah,
to say the least. I'm going
to. They have a very strong non-conference strength of schedule.
While we're talking about Troy here, guys, I want to say this, that for all the good things that they did last year and the things they're doing again to be back in this tournament this year, they are one of 7 teams that'll be playing in this tournament that are what I label or what I call double champion dogs. And a double champion dog is simply a team that won its regular season and won its conference tournament, and they're a dog in this tournament to a team that did neither of the two. So, and they come up probably feeling with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, that they're being disrespected, and you get a big effort from these teams. And there are 7 of them on the card this year. In fact, I'm going to run them by everybody here listening. They're in the March Madness tournament guide. But let me run them by you here while we're on the subject. South Florida is a double champion. North Dakota State, St. Louis, Troy, High Point, who's very, very dangerous. In fact, we called them in an upset. Wright State and Tennessee State. Those are your 7 double champion dogs that'll be playing this on the card this week.
Mark, I have a question related to that. I don't know if you've done the research. I've not had a chance to, but how about teams that are in the minor conferences, covered as a dog last year, and are back for a second straight year as an underdog again? And I was going to follow that up with, especially if they are back to back, or the double conference champions. In other words, regular season and the conference tournament in 2 successive years. Covered the first year as an underdog.
You're talking covered in the first game
Of the NCAA tournament, yeah.
Right.
That
So,
year.
Covered as a dog last year, dog again this year. That's a good question. I have to go back.
Well, for example, McNeese. I don't recall what Troy did last year. I know McNeese State obviously pulled the upset last year as an underdog against Clemson, and they're an underdog this year, and they were one of the 7 teams you just mentioned.
Well, psychologically, it's got to help. I mean, anytime you go,
yeah, I would think.
You get a little nervous. You got a lot of things going on the first time, but the second time you go, hey, we've been here, we've done this. Yeah. We just got to do a little better.
Doing this kind of research is the kind of thing that I tell people they should do. Is that you come up with a hypothesis that makes perfect sense. Okay, well, they did well last year. They won the conference, both regular and tournament. They covered as an underdog in their first game, and they do it a second time. They should be more likely to produce the same result. But even though that theory makes an awful lot of sense, it always doesn't work out that way. It's counterintuitive.
What was the number? Did you have a number on that, Mark? Those 7 teams?
You mean what is their
percentage or win percentage?
I'll say this: they don't bankrupt the bookmaker, but they don't lose money either. They're a real nice grind. These 7 teams, I would say I would strongly be in favor that at least 4 of them will cash it, if not 5 of them. Okay. Because you get these massive efforts. My main concern, though, is those guys were always from the unsung mid-major conferences playing teams that were getting all the ink. Now, the teams I mentioned here, the 7 here, they're still unsung mid-major conference teams. But who have not fared well in this tournament, or certainly didn't fare well last year because of the success that the bigger boys had in the tournament. So,
and by the way, it's the concern that I have also, and it was not a concern until NIL and transfer portal came along, is that a lot of those kids, I don't know, I would imagine, again, it's another intuitive versus counterintuitive, that a number of the kids who had great tournaments and allowed that first cover to occur ended up transferring out. The best players on some of those teams were poached. And so even though, like, for example, a McNeese State or a Troy is back for a second year, some of the players that may have helped them to gain that notoriety last year are no longer with that program. Otherwise, it would make sense from a standpoint of, well, those are the lesser players. They weren't heavily recruited, maybe didn't even make the transfer portal or the NIL. They are back together. This will be their second year of playing together as a almost complete unit.
All right, guys, before I turn it over to Greg, who wants to bring up some of the March Madness futures now that they're set in cement, I'd like to hear what Greg has to say about that. I want to run 3 more quickie quiz questions by you. Your answer is either yes or no if you'll think about it. You don't have to go dig too deep into these things. Question number 1, will the loss of Caleb Williams for the tournament disrupt North Carolina's 24-0 record in its first NCAA tournament game when they play number 11 or worse seeds since 1990. 24 wins in a row for North Carolina in the role they'll be in this week. Will the loss of Caleb Wilson, who's been out a month or so, is it going to disrupt their chances this year? Jim, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Andy?
I'd say no in round 1, yes going forward. I just think they just have too much talent against VCU.
But I think it's more round 1, though, because they carry this 24-0 streak in round 1 going in, right?
I don't think it'll affect them in that first game, but going forward, it will.
And Greg, what's your answer? Yes or no?
I'll take VCU to all those types of trends are due to lose once, and a streak comes to an end, and this would be the perfect year for it to come to an end when you lose your top player like that. And they just haven't looked the same. They didn't look good in the ACC tournament, and VCU is real red hot right now. Yeah. So
the other thing supporting VCU is they could use the fact that
I'll say this is the year
that the commission said if you didn't win your Atlantic 10 championship game, you're not in. I think VCU, and again, even though I don't think it'll affect North Carolina, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not so much that loss, but VCU's motivation to say, hey, we're going to prove we did not have to win that Atlantic 10 championship game to get in the field.
Well, that's a point. That's a thought, Andy. They've also got the Martellis on the sideline, the son and the father, which is, they're not going to be out-coached in too many games.
And it's interesting, the father is the cheerleader this year.
Yes, he is. He's an advisor, but a cheerleader nonetheless. Okay, question number 2. Since 2008, NCAA teams who won 20 games before they lost their first game of the season. They started out 20-0 or better, have gone 9-3 straight up the next game after their first loss. The play this year is Miami of Ohio. Is Miami of Ohio plus 6.5 a play in the tournament? Yes or no? Jim?
Yes.
You like Miami plus the points?
Yes, I took 8.5.
Well, there you go. Well, you like them at 6.5?
No, I don't need to stretch it, but I really don't like SMU. So yes.
Yeah.
I'm showing that line, by the way, at least here in Vegas. It's back up to 7.5.
Is it? Okay. All right, good.
At all the major books.
All right, good.
They may have wanted to wait and see if BJ Edwards was definitely going to play or not. That might be a factor.
Mr. Commissioner, you're good.
It's coming soon. Well, we got a few more hours to go.
So, Andy, yes or no? Miami O plus the points, first round.
Yes, and I also like him in the first half. Again, to now that the pressure is off, I think they're going to want to prove to the committee that the committee was right and they did belong there. And I think that I trust them for the full game, but I trust them in the first half where they get off to a quick lead. Maybe SMU just has a little bit too much talent or something that at the end they win, but I still think it's going to be a close game. So I'm taking them both first half and full game.
Greg, is Miami O going to be on your ticket opening round?
Yeah, I think they're a solid dog play. It's as good as any dog out there. There's not a lot of good dogs that are getting 7 points that you think can outright win 7 or higher in the first round, and they would have to be one of them.
Well, I set this up by saying they start out 20-0 or better. Miami starts out 31-0. So I don't know how many teams have gone that far, to push this button. But
are there any other teams this year? Was Nebraska one of them, and maybe a couple of others that were 20-0 this year?
That's a good question. I didn't even think about Nebraska.
I mean
George Mason, but they may have been 20-1. They were really hot.
I don't think the situation has ever happened before in college basketball where a team went 31-0, lost their first game, and still played. Because I don't think there was ever that many games several years ago, and I don't remember anyone going 31-0 and losing very recently. So they might be the first team. What's
Mark,
that?
didn't you point out something that this is just a little unrealistic, but didn't you point out, Mark, that I don't know if there are any other teams this year, that a championship has never been won by a team that lost its first conference game, which
correct.
Obviously Miami would fall into that category.
Miami could still lose and cash this ticket, though.
Yes.
Don't be putting any money on the Miami Redhawks to win the national championship.
No, we won't. Last question, yes or no, guys. This is kind of neat here. Connecticut in the NCAA tournament, their last 36 games in this tournament, when they've been a number 4 or better seed, Connecticut 22-1 straight up and 20-1-2 against the spread. That's as a number 4 or better seed, which they are coming into this tournament. Will they make money in the tournament this year? Jim, yes or no for Connecticut?
Connecticut's an alien from an outer space planet somewhere because the way they play with all that talent, I have no idea what's wrong with them. I would not bet them to go very far. I see they're lined up against Furman.
Furman's dangerous, very dangerous.
I think Furman can first of all cover. I wouldn't bet them to win it, but I could definitely see them to cover.
There you go. So Jim says no to Connecticut. Andy, yes or no? Connecticut makes money in the tournament this year.
Last year they Furman. A few years ago they upset Virginia as a low seed. I'm not that thrilled with Furman this year. I think Connecticut, coming off of that blowout loss to St. John's, I think they cover in the game against Furman. But making money in the tournament against point spread, that means that they would have to play 3 games if they end up covering the first one. I think they will not cover the next 2. So I would say no.
I got 2 no's, Greg.
Even though after the first game, I think they'll be 1-0.
Greg, you make it a 3 for 3, or you think Connecticut will be a moneymaker this postseason?
No. No, because they have to play UCLA next, more than likely.
And then Michigan State.
And Michigan State more than likely. So no. And they're 13-21 on the season. And I don't think that changes overnight. And remember, the Big East was not very good. Now, I understand a lot of those spreads were big, but still, this point spread is point spread. and they got another big one against Furman. So why would I want to take UConn at 13-21 against the spread against Furman? I wouldn't want to do that.
I'd rather make the bet that Connecticut doesn't cover a spread.
Yes or no?
That could be the case.
Yeah.
And get a bigger price, right?
Speaking of Michigan State, by the way, I know nobody's brought it up, and you brought it up as one of those 7 teams. Really, nobody's talked a whole lot about North Dakota State, but that's also one of those teams you got to keep an eye on, because we have seen Michigan State be vulnerable in recent years in the tournament, and they've won 17 out of 19, and they're a good 3-point shooting team. They can force turnovers pressure-wise. They can, rebound defensively really well. So it's I don't think they're going to win the game. All I'm saying is that, if you're looking for one of those long shots that nobody's talking about, North Dakota State might be a team to keep an eye on.
Sleeper team from Greg. Speaking of which, Greg, I'm turning it over to you. Right now, it's NCAA tournament time. Which games are you looking at for your futures to make money with in this tournament?
Well, one of them, we can actually start all the way at the bottom, from the bottom to the top, because one of them represents Andy's pick to win the NCAA championship, and that's St. John's at 75-1. I still can't believe we've already started the tournament and St. John's is still 75-1. I never would have believed that when I put money on St. John's.
It's because they would have to be the team most likely to eliminate Duke.
Well, no, but they were 75-1 before the bracket came out. So it's like it just, and again, even Matt talked about this yesterday. It's like, I'm not the only one. It's like we're all wondering, UConn is a 2 seed. Yeah. St. John's is a 5 seed.
That was the biggest injustice of the seeding in my mind, Greg. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and St. John's just buried UConn in the Big East championship, beat them 2 out of 3. Lost one game in their last 20 or something like that, which was at UConn in a revenge situation, which everybody kind of felt they were going to lose that game. You're going to sweep UConn. I think that's the best value play, bar none, in the entire tournament, is taking St. John's to win it all at 75-1.
Yep.
So that would be one of those teams. I think also. I wouldn't discard Vandy as either, because they could very well be playing Florida in the Sweet 16, and we know they could beat Florida.
That would be a revenge game for Florida. That would be the main concern. But you're right, Vanderbilt will be playing with the confidence that they had already done it, albeit in Nashville. But Vanderbilt, like I say, I have losing to McNeese, but if they beat McNeese, they can take a nice little run.
The one little concern here, guys, was this is. And we call this out again in the guide. There's a lot of great information in the March Madness guide. You can get it at playbooksports.com, of course. This is another one of those famed 5 versus 12 matchups. And you have a 5 seed in St. John's favored against a 12 seed in Northern Iowa. So I was thinking about this in the shower this morning. I'm saying, so if St. John's was a 6 seed, I would like them. If they're a 4 seed, I would like them, but I can't like them as a 5 seed. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I tore the database.
Well, whether they would be a 4 or a 5, they would have to get by Duke, because 5, assuming form holds, 5 plays 4 in the next round.
Well, I'm talking more specifically a 5 against a 12 in the first round, which is what this is. And so I tore the database open and I checked those 5s against the 12s, which have always been money makers, not as good as in the past, but they still make money. The best role for the 5s against the 12s is the role that St. John's happens to be in when they come in. A 5 comes in off a winning cover, and they're taking on an opponent that's also off of a winning cover. The 5 is 11-2 straight up and 10-3 to the spread. So that kind of favors St. John's against Northern Iowa in the 5-12 dispute, if you will, in that sense. So if you're worried about that, don't worry about that. And you can also, for what it's worth.
By the way, my only concern there is that both of these teams are really, really good on defense, which could suggest, and Northern Iowa, I don't have them in front of me as far as their slow pace goes, they probably figure their chance to pull out this game is to have as few possessions as possible, which might make it more difficult. It's not laying this number against a team that doesn't play good defense. That's my only concern with that.
A little bit of Rick Pitino irony in this game here too, guys. In his career, he's faced, as a 5 seed, he's faced 12 seeds 6 times, and he's won and covered all 6 of those games. So he's been him alone has really beat up that number, favoring the 5 seed. So it's not a role.
He's definitely a great coach. There's no question.
No question about it. And Andy, I like your pick for them to go all the way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're going to go all the way, but I think they're going to make money in this tournament. And I think they're going to be the team that has the biggest boulder on their shoulder will be St. John's because of the seeding situation.
And don't forget, as we go over these championship
Remember,
odds,
I think weren't they a 2 seed last year?
Yeah, I think they
Wasn't
were.
St. John's a number 2 seed last year?
They were a high seed team last year, yes. And their offense let them down. And it's still kind of, I like their top 3. I think they can score, but their shooting is definitely their bugaboo. And if they have another off night in this one and done culture, it could cost them. But
when you have two good coaches in this style that this Northern Iowa plays is very, very difficult to deal with.
A real tough scoring defense, Northern Iowa, right?
Yeah, don't forget
in the country, right?
I believe we could see a St. John's against Duke, and then Patino against Tom Izzo.
You could see that
matchup.
That would be very highly entertaining. And actually, it wouldn't be a bad idea to take. If you're thinking that Duke's vulnerable because of the injuries, taking both Michigan State 8s and St. John's to win the region, because you're getting 7 and 9-1.
Yep.
All you need is one of them to win, and you're cashing out. So don't forget, as we go over St. John's at 75-1 to win the championship, you should also look at them to get to the Final Four because they're really still a solid 9-1 number. So you're still making good money.
Which is, by the way, very unusual that a team that's 9-4 to win its region is 75-1 to win the tournament, because in order to win the tournament, they'd have to beat the team that they're 75-1 against, Duke, to get there.
And then speaking of, let's see, where's the region we talked about? There it is with Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt's 11-1 to get to the Final Four. And speaking of this region, Trend Tacklers wanted to ask this question. If Houston and Florida met in the Elite 8, which is played in Houston, what do you guys believe the line would be?
I personally, I think it's going to be a pick 'em.
Yeah. Remember, there was a 2-point game last year that Houston led a good part of that game.
Right.
Now the game is in Houston. They haven't been playing all that well, but they still have that great defense. So maybe instead of making Florida maybe a 2 to 3 point favorite, maybe you do make it a pick 'em because of the fail. And keep in mind that they would be meeting in the regional finals, I believe. Yeah, it would be 1 and a 2.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Keep in mind that would be the Saturday game, the Saturday or the Sunday game. After the first meeting would be in the Sweet 16. The game before that would be the Sweet 16. And the 2 losers in the Sweet 16 want to get rid of their tickets. Who's going to buy the tickets? All the people living in Houston.
Yeah, en masse Houston fans, right?
Good point, Andy.
Other teams, Greg, we should be looking at right now while the price is right for futures before this tournament really officially gets underway.
Well, we're going to stay in this category every year now, and that's Arkansas. So you're getting 60-1 on a team that just won the SEC tournament. And we talked about Acuff and Calipari, and this is a dangerous team. This is a team that could lose their second game of the tournament, and they can win the national championship. I think they're a volatile team, but that's why they're 60-1. Yeah. But to me, they're every bit as capable as St. John's and maybe even Vanderbilt, who they beat in the SEC championship game. So I think Arkansas.
When you have a guard like that,
Acuff,
he can just take off on you and make a world of difference. And we saw that with Connecticut years ago. I can't remember the player's name. I'm sure if somebody knows what it is. And nobody figured they would win, but that guard just took off and beat everybody.
What year was you talking about?
Was that Danielle Marshall or Donnie Marshall? One of those two.
Which team?
Marshall?
No. When Connecticut won the tournament years ago, and when Connecticut won the tournament, they had a guard. I can't remember his name right now, but he just took off and beat everybody. He was just amazing.
Is that the former coach? Kevin Ollie?
No. This was just that many years ago, not that long.
Greg, what's the money line, Arkansas, Hawaii?
Oh, with Hawaii?
Yes.
Let's see.
Somebody out there, please answer the question.
I think I might have that here somewhere because I have the lines separate. How do I have lines here? That's a big number. Why do you actually think Hawaii?
Well, the only it's because of a point I was going to make is this SEC champion of the playoffs does really well in the first round, and they're 30-4 straight
They
up.
are Arkansas at Westgate is minus 1,300 plus 800 on Hawaii.
You can forget I asked that question, okay?
Oh yeah, that was never gonna.
I didn't think you were going to lay that number.
No, I was not. No.
No, but there are people who parlay all those big favorites, and then maybe they get back plus 125 or 130, laying those big numbers. And
By the way,
I'd be
this
interested to
is-
see what the number one seed parlay.
Are we airing live right now?
Yes, we always air live.
Okay. 3:40, which is 2 hours from now, roughly. I like Prairie View, late information, Prairie View tonight, plus the 3.5.
Late information. Why? What do you have?
His sources.
I got somebody that came in with some big money and said they're going to win. I get these texts, and and then I fly off, and here goes 5,000 out the door.
Okay.
When I did my rankings, my numbers for the tournament, I had Lehigh, the team that Prairie View is playing, ranked number 68 out of the 68 teams. You would think Prairie View would be right there. They're a little bit higher. They're like a 15 seed. They're actually ranked number 60. So that's a nice little gap.
Well, the SWAC hasn't won. Has the SWAC ever won a first round game? It's been like 20, 30 years, I think.
Well, it would be a play-in game. I don't think they've ever won it. No, they've never won it as a 16 seed.
Well,
Unless they're playing another 16 seed, which is tonight.
If you find the 3.5, buy it to 4. It's a great buy. And you got
okay. So just the points. Don't go for the win. Just the points.
Well, the underdog guys in these
absolutely.
first 4 games of 16 versus 16 teams has been the money. That's where the money has been for the longest time. And if they're coming off an underdog win, which Prairie View is, they're 6-1-1 to the number. The thing about the game, Jim, I think that fits is you look at Lehigh, they're dead last in this tournament of all 68 teams in scoring margin. They're the only negative team in scoring margin, if you will. And they're also negative rebound margin. This basketball team, I don't know why they're here. Because they won a tournament, I guess.
By the way, as far as Prairie View goes, they won the SWAC. They were the number 8 seed in that tournament. They beat the number 3 seed.
That's the thing that's crazy. They ended their season 9-1 straight up, 10-0 against the spread in their last 10 with 6 upset wins.
Yeah.
And that's how they did it as the 8 seed. So maybe they were also one of these teams that just needed to gel with a lot of new players. I'm not sure what their roster, I don't know what they got paid, but still. Everybody has new rosters and everybody's getting paid, so maybe they just needed some time. And then,
by the way, the other thing with St. John's, I believe their roster 11 new players this year, only 4 carryover from last year. So that explains a lot of their difficulty in beating the really good teams they faced in November and December. And I was going back and looking at Blue Ribbon, and they basically said Pitino scheduled his team tough because he knew it was going to take some time for them to gel. Let's see how they play right now, meaning November and December, when they're getting familiar with each other. That'll serve us better when we get into the tournament. And so far, the game plan's been working nicely.
Any more teams, Greg, you want to run by us as far as money-making possibilities here?
Yeah, the only other now we move up, and then we get to this part of the championship round or area, and that is there are 2 teams here that stick out at 18-1 and 25-1, and that would be Iowa State and Purdue. So if you're looking for maybe a more reasonable couple of teams, not a 60 or 75-1 number, Iowa State is more than capable of winning it all.
Yep.
And Purdue has gotten hot at the right time. They have 4 guys that were key guys that were on the team last year that made the run before losing to Houston. And so they're back. They just proved it in the Big Ten tournament. So they'll be a dangerous team as well. So those would be the other 2 teams at a more reasonable number at 18 and 25-1.
What's the number on Gonzaga? I know
Gonzaga
you've got that.
Is 60.
Yeah, that's a nice number. They've been without their big player for a while, haven't they?
Yeah, he's been out since January, and I'm not really listening to Mark Few. It doesn't sound good. He's talking about he's out jogging. I mean, we got a week to go, and he's jogging. So I don't really think that sounds very good. So I don't really expect Gonzaga to get him back.
Either that or he's showing a little gamesmanship.
Could be. Could be.
Could be worse, Greg. He could have said
Oh,
he's
Andy,
walking.
that would
You know?
never happen.
I guess it could be worse. Yeah. I like that.
All right, guys, before we nail you down for your final two teams in the championship game, I'm going to run some key critical stats by everybody. And in our March Madness guide, we've got every team in the team stats all broken down in the 10 major statistical categories. And what I'm going to run by you are the main key categories, and the best team in the tournament, the worst team in the tournament. Obviously, the number one scoring offensive team, that has to be Alabama, 91-7. The worst, Northern Iowa at 69.9 points a game. Number one scoring defense, though, now is Northern Iowa, 61.3. And number 68 scoring offense is Alabama. So you've got a complete reversal.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? They who get it don't stop it, and those who stop it don't get it. Shooting defense, which I think is critical here. Number one team in this tournament is St. Louis, 37.9%. They hold teams to field goal percentage. The worst is Queens out of North Carolina, not out of New York. Queens, 646.6, very soft shooting defense. Margin of victory. This might be a surprise. The number one team in the tournament with the largest margin of victory is High Point.
Yep.
19.7 points a game. They win their games by an average margin. Negative, worst team, Lehigh. I mentioned it before, minus 0.8. Rebound margin,
Which
number
I
one
believe
team.
is the only team that's been outscored on the season in the field.
Yes, they are in this tournament. Exactly.
Yeah.
Number one rebound per game margin team is Florida, plus 14.5 rebound margin per game. Number 68, Lehigh. There you go again. There's Lehigh, minus 3.9.
And that factor for Florida offsets their lack of ability to make 3-point shots, because when they miss them, they're always getting the rebound and putting it back in and getting two.
Andy, what a great segue, because the last category is 3-point field goal percentage. Number one team, best 3-point percentage shooting team, St. Louis, 40.1. They're not a fluke, guys. St. Louis, this basketball team can make some noise. And the 68th worst team, as Andy mentions, Florida, 30.8% in 3-point field goal percentage, which might end up being their Waterloo this basketball tournament season here.
That's why I have them as the first number one seed to fall, especially if they fall behind and have to rely on the 3-point shots that they don't make too frequently.
Well, 3-point shooting is the most fickle statistic in all of basketball. I mean, you can be a 40% shooter and have a night where you can go 18%. I mean, it's just a fickle stat. And
yeah, and it's usually a come back to the norm type of a stat too, Jim. You know, the team is, coming off a real big high. They usually tend to stink it up the next game or so, come back to the average.
Wouldn't you rather focus on good free throw shooting, good defense, no, don't turn the ball over, a good coach? So those consistent factors are going to be there every game.
Unquestionably.
Shooting, like Andy said, you're a good offensive rebounder and you shoot threes and you miss. They're good offensive rebound. You're going to get shots. I don't think that stat should be treated as importantly as we.
You don't think it's relevant?
I think it's very relevant. No, I'm not saying it's not relevant. I just don't think it's top. I don't think it should be the number one thing we look at.
I understand.
What are you talking about? What, offensive rebounds or
no 3-point field goal percentage?
3-point field goal percentage. Yeah. By the way, I was considering picking St. Mary's over Houston if they were to meet. St. Mary's, number one in the field, 81.1% free throws, which is great. Only problem is, and Houston, which you would think might not have great field free throws, 77.2%. So if you're over 72%, Houston has a decent chance of making at least the front end of a 1-1. St. Mary's has a good chance of making them both.
Okay, guys, before we wrap it up with your two final teams that will play in the championship game, I want to run this by everybody one more time. I know I've been beating this to death, but I'm beating it to death for the right reason. I've been playing with these Ken Pomeroy numbers, and the beautiful one that I found that's never lost, okay, I call it his 22 for 22 theory. And if you are ranked in Ken Pomeroy's top 22 teams with adjusted defensive efficiency, and you're in that top 22, a team from this list has never lost since it's been doing this, dating back to 2008. Those teams
You mean that every team that's won the championship has been in the
Every
top
team that's won the
22 in that
championship
category.
resides on this list.
And this is the category is what? Defensive.
Defensive efficiency.
Okay.
By Ken Palm's numbers, okay? His defensive efficiency numbers, 22 times, 22 winners. These teams are Michigan, Duke, Arizona, Iowa State, Houston, Florida, Nebraska, Gonzaga, Kansas, UConn, St. John's, Michigan State, Tennessee, Virginia.
You're going too damn fast.
How many teams are in here?
Jim, I'm going to email this to you. Okay?
This doesn't help us out at all.
Okay.
We get a better
Well, after Houston, who did you say?
Let me start it over at a pace, okay? Number 1, Michigan.
Okay.
Number 2 is Duke.
You got all 4 number 1 seeds.
Yeah.
Number 3, Arizona. Number 4, Iowa State. Number 5, Houston. Number 6, Florida. Number 7, Nebraska. Number 9, the reason I'm saying 9 because the number 8 team is not in this tournament, okay, is Gonzaga. Number 10, Kansas. Number 11, UConn. Number 12, St. John's. Number 13, Michigan State. 14 is Seton Hall, not in the tournament. 15 is Tennessee. 16 is Virginia. 17 not in the tournament, West Virginia. 18 not in the tournament, Seattle. 19 not in the tournament, San Diego State. Number 20, St. Mary's. Number 21, Clemson. And tied for number 22 is Grand Canyon, not in the tournament, but TCU is. Those are your teams, guys, that, according to all these Ken Palm numbers, the way he's been working up since he's been doing this, he's nailed the winner out of this list of teams 22 out of 22 times. So the teams who didn't get in, by the way, surprisingly, no Illinois, no Iowa, no Vanderbilt, no Texas Tech, no Villanova, and no Purdue. That's a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, this is really more for the beginning of the tournament, going against teams that you like. If you think of Purdue, hey, I like Purdue, and then all of a sudden they're not on this list, you might want to rethink that.
Yeah, you might not like them all as much as you thought you did. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Otherwise, these are
my
obviously a lot of good teams.
Are on this list, so that gives, if they make it, I feel like that's a pretty good feeling to have. Actually,
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have everybody's final 4 picks except you, Mark.
Oh, okay. Well, this is the Against the Spread podcast, who may not have tuned into the Proline TV podcast. So let's review those if we can for our listeners here right now, if we would.
All right.
Okay. Okay. And Jim, I'm going to start with you. Your 2 teams you have playing for the national championship.
I have Arizona against Florida.
Arizona and Florida. Andy, your 2 teams. Or Jim, give me your winner too, since we're talking about it. Arizona, Florida. Have you decided yet, or are you going to wait and see?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Arizona
Florida
against
over
Florida.
Arizona.
Florida, Arizona, Florida wins.
Okay, Florida over Arizona. Andy, your 2 teams.
I have St. John's over Michigan.
St. John's over Michigan. We got 4 different teams. Greg, your 2 teams.
Prairie View. No, I've got
You
them on
want
my
to see
mind.
if we were paying attention.
I've got them on my mind now because as soon as it's over, I'm gonna make it a withdrawal from my bank account and
You're gonna match that 5 large, huh?
And if they lose, I'm gonna give Jim a call.
I get blamed for that.
Where am I? Okay, I have Duke over Michigan.
Duke over Michigan. Okay, in my 2 teams, guys, I have Houston over Purdue. And I know Purdue should not be on my list because they're not on the Ken Pomeroy list, but I'm not saying they're going to win the championship. I'm just saying they're going to get there.
And Matt Yeomans on our show yesterday, he went with Michigan over Houston.
Michigan over Houston. One of the two little insights about my selections that I want to pass along here. Number 1, Houston. Inside our March Madness tournament guide, which you guys have got got to get a copy of yourself at playbooksports.com. There's a nice article that I put in there. I did a lot of research, and it points out how defending losers do in this NCAA tournament the following season. And you'll be a little bit surprised to find out the success rate at which they make in the NCAA tournament coming back the next year with that chip on their shoulder. As far as Purdue is concerned, I like them for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're on a major roll right now. They started well. They fell asleep. They woke up. They woke up at the right time, and they were the number one overall preseason team in the country coming into the season this year. And Ed Fang, who is a real analytical handicapper, he's a good friend of mine. He does everything analytically, but he says there's one thing he pays attention to when the March Madness tournament comes around, and it's preseason polls. And the reason he does is because you find a lot of value to teams in those preseason polls that aren't being talked about a lot because they didn't live up to the standard, but they have the talent, they have the ability, and once the bell rings, it'll oftentimes show in a tournament like this. And you're talking about Purdue, the number one preseason team in the tournament. So,
which, by the way, surprised me when it came to St. John's. I did not realize how highly they were ranked in the blue ribbon before the season. They were actually number 6.
There you go. Which leaves us to sign off the show with the major question: why is Connecticut a 2 seed and St. John's a 5 seed? That's the question of the show. I still can't figure it out, and if anybody knows,
yeah, I think it's because of their resume in November.
Yeah.
UConn had a lot of big wins, and St. John's had a lot of big losses.
Yeah,
and that's it.
And I've never understood what that used to be. I think one of the criteria how teams are playing over the 10 games leading into the tournament, which is much more meaningful than when you were playing, Prairie View. Excuse me, Greg, back in November and winning, 85-39. And
it's more meaningful nowadays because of the portal. It takes these teams longer to gel.
Exactly. In fact, if anything, that's why the committee should reinstate that. How are you coming in over your last 10, 15 games? Because so many teams, much more than ever before, have completely revamped rosters that have to start getting used to each other in November and December because of all the turnover. Those games, whether they're between good teams, 2 good teams, or 2 bad teams, or 1 of each, don't mean nearly as much as how they are playing when it really counts. And the other thing is, when you're looking at the last 10 games, you're basically looking at teams that know each other, the strengths and weaknesses, because they're all conference games leading into the start of the tournament. And so it tells you how you're going to play against teams that you know, and it's a little bit different than when you're going up agast teams that you don't know.
Now,
okay, guys, I got to pull the plug in the show because I have places to go. And I'm going to look forward to doing this again next Wednesday, as we did this week. We'll get out inside in front of the Sweet 16 round. In the meantime, be sure to get this March Madness tournament guide in your hands. We're going to publish the same thing for the Sweet 16 next week. We're going to have you covered from head to toe in the tournament. So until
by the way, excuse me, Mark, I'm going to tell people to get 2 copies because they're going to be spending 1 copy is going to be fully marked up with a highlighter by the end of the first 2 rounds.
I like that, Andy. I like that thinking real well. In fact, I'm going to try and order one up out of the office, a 2nd copy. I'll do just that. Okay, guys, for our esteemed panel of experts, Jim Feist in Las Vegas, the only man I know that has 5 large on Prairie View. But I wish you the best of luck in this tournament, Jim.
Thank you.
Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas. Nothing but good luck for you, Andy, as well.
Thank you.
And Greg DePalma, our producer extraordinaire. Nothing but winners for you this season as well, Greg.
That's what I'm hoping to get a jump start tonight with Prairie View.
Let's hope so.
Either Prairie View wins or Greg's going off the cliff.
Well, aren't you also going to be on Miami of Florida, Miami of Ohio, so you can start off 2-0?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take all that money now and I'm putting it on Prairie View in the first game. Okay. Maybe I'll do a parlay now.
Well, take a little money line on Prairie View as well.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, real quick, guys, before I get out of here, tell me, what's Prairie View's nickname? Or does it matter?
I don't know, but I would initially say Prairie Dogs.
That's not bad.
That's a good guess, Andy.
Pioneers?
I don't know. Let me see.
Okay.
It's in the guide, obviously, but I'm just being facetious because I don't even know who they are personally. Although
we're all going to find out.
Give me about 30 seconds, and I will tell you that Prairie View
Panthers. The Panthers?
Yeah. Okay. Prairie View. Oh, it's Prairie View A&M Panthers.
Yes.
They're in Texas. Every Texas school has to have an A&M. You got Texas A&M Commerce. You got Texas A&M East Texas State or whatever it is. The Texas A&M
What's
whatever.
A&M stand for?
Agriculture and mining.
Agriculture and mining, just like Texas A&M, right?
Wow.
I didn't know they do agriculture and mining at Prairie View, but nonetheless, I guess that's what they might be partly famous for. Guys, I'm going to get out of here. Nothing but good luck this week. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks,
For the
guys.
panel here on Marc Lawrence Against the Spread, this is Marc Lawrence reminding you to always remember to bet with your head, not over it. And good luck as always.